Lord William Soulis, a name carved into the darkest corners of Scottish legend. A nobleman, a warlock, a tyrant, and some say a monster. Should his name have been Soulis? You decide. To understand his story, we need to begin with bloodlines, because Soulis wasn't just any lord. He was born into a family with serious power. His grandfather, Nicholas de Soulis, was one of the original 13 nobles who staked a claim to the Scottish throne during the succession crisis after the death of Alexander III. His claim wasn't outlandish. The Soulis line traced back to an illegitimate daughter of King Alexander II. In medieval Scotland, that was enough to put ambition in a man's heart and a target on his back. William was raised in privilege with access to courts, education, and military training. In his early years, he aligned himself with England, an allegiance that often came with political leverage, especially in the chaotic years when Scotland fought for independence. As his influence grew, so did his holdings. He inherited or acquired vast lands across the Scottish borders: Liddesdale, Dumfriesshire, Westerkirk, Kirkandrews, Gilmerton, Nisbet, Longnewton, Caverton, Maxtoon, and Mertoon. These weren't just plots of earth, they were power, wealth, manpower. He became known formally as Lord William de Soulis. The true story of William Soulis is not one of noble stewardship or wise rule. It's one of cruelty. Over time, whispers grew louder. Soulis wasn't just strict or severe. He was brutal. Villagers feared his name. Tenants vanished. Servants suffered. The most chilling stories describe him creating cruel contraptions. Iron yokes that fastened his servants together, forcing them to move heavy stones like oxen. He treated humans as if they were livestock, working them until their bodies broke. Those who disobeyed him were punished severely, sometimes disappearing altogether. His cruelty wasn't limited to his own lands. Soulis was the man behind the death of Colt of Keeldar, a feared baron from Northumberland. Though Keeldar himself was no saint, the way he died was telling. Soulis's men held him underwater with spears, drowning him in cold blood. No duel, no trial, just ruthless execution. And yet, the most unsettling part of the Soulis legend isn't his brutality. It's what came next. Whispers of sorcery followed him like a shadow. Locals believed he practiced the black arts. Some said he learned them from a mysterious figure called Robin Redcap, a malevolent spirit or demon said to haunt the borderlands. Sir Walter Scott said that a Redcap was a class of spirits that haunted all Scottish castles. Others believed Soulis performed rituals in the hills, offering blood for power. Whether superstition or truth, the fear was real. They said no steel could cut him, no rope could bind him, and no water could drown him. His body, some claimed, had been fortified by dark magic. These fears intensified as Soulis's political ambitions grew. His royal blood, combined with his power, made him a threat to King Robert the Bruce. And then came the conspiracy. Some say Soulis wanted the crown for himself. Others say he conspired to install an alternative king. Whatever his goal, he was caught plotting against Robert the Bruce, Scotland's warrior king and symbol of resistance against England. The conspiracy shattered what remained of the Soulis family's influence. A house once vital to the Scottish cause vanished almost overnight. But Robert the Bruce didn't just want political justice, he wanted silence. According to legend, the king was so horrified by Soulis' crimes that he uttered the words, "Boil him if you please, but let me hear no more of him." And that's where history ends and legend takes over. A force of 360 squires and knights gathered to take down Soulis. It wasn't just an arrest, it was an exorcism. They feared his magic. They feared that death itself might not be enough. Steel was useless, rope powerless. So they turned to fire. They tore lead from the very walls of Hermitage Castle, Soulis' stronghold, and wrapped it around his body. Then they took him to Stane Rig, a remote stone circle near the Scottish border, a place already steeped in ancient superstition. There, they did what no sword could do. They boiled him alive. The tale says his screams echoed through the hills, that the stones themselves were scorched by the fire, that even in death Soulis's body resisted destruction. It took hours, but eventually the man who thought himself untouchable was gone. Today, the ruins of Hermitage Castle still stand. Locals say you can hear faint whispers in its halls, that the stones of Stane Rig hold more than just weathered history. They hold a curse. The name Soulis is long gone from noble rolls and royal records, but in the borderlands, his legend lives on. Was Lord William Soulis a sadistic noble corrupted by power? A would-be usurper crushed by politics? Or a dark sorcerer whose crimes demanded something more than death? History offers little clarity, but the legend never died. Not all accounts agree on the fate of Lord William Soulis. Some say he was never boiled alive at all, that instead he was brought before King Robert the Bruce, tried for treason, and convicted in a formal court. According to this version, he wasn't executed. He was stripped of all property and titles and sentenced to live out his days confined to his castle at Dumfries. An unusual punishment, especially when you consider the company he kept. Soulis wasn't the only noble accused of conspiracy. In fact, so many lords were implicated and executed in the aftermath that the Parliament of 1320 became known as the Black Parliament. It was a political bloodbath. And yet, we're asked to believe that Soulis, at the center of it all, was spared the axe. He died in 1320, or possibly 1321, but that timeline casts doubt on the tale of peaceful confinement, because in medieval Scotland, leniency was rare, and mercy for traitors rarer still. His most infamous stronghold remains the same in every version of the story: Hermitage Castle. Even today, Hermitage stands like a scar in the borders, a place of shadow, silence, and superstition. According to legend, the ground beneath the castle literally sank upon Soulis's death, unable to bear the weight of the evil committed within its walls. Some say it cracked, others say it folded into itself. One tale speaks of a door, sealed to all men without hinges, without a lock. It could only open once every 7 years. No key existed because none was made. This chamber, the story goes, was where Soulis communed with infernal forces, where he bargained, sacrificed, and offered his soul in exchange for invincibility. The story ends with him being dragged away to his death, boiled alive at Stane Rig, but not before he performed one final ritual, hurling the chamber's key over his left shoulder to his demon master, who vanished into the dark. That secret room? It was later identified as the dungeon of Hermitage Castle. And Soulis didn't work alone. Like many who dabbled in the occult, he had a familiar, a spiritual servant. His was named Robin, a figure who appeared as a man dressed entirely in red. Some claimed he was a demon, others thought him a cursed spirit, bound to Soulis by sorcery. Either way, the name stuck. Robin Redcap became folklore, feared throughout the borders, a symbol of malice and mischief for generations. It's said Soulis learned the black arts from Michael Scott, one of medieval Europe's most infamous scholars of alchemy and arcane knowledge. Scott's name alone was enough to stir fear across Christendom, and Soulis may have been his most dangerous student. We'll probably never know what really happened. Was Soulis truly a dark sorcerer, a power-hungry noble with a cruel streak, or simply a man whose enemies buried him in myth to erase his legacy? Even history itself seems conflicted. A man named Sir Ranulph de Soulis, possibly a relative, was murdered by his own servants nearly a century earlier, for cruelty just as brutal. Could stories have merged over time? Could Lord William Soulis have become a vessel for centuries of accumulated fear? What we do know is this: the legend lasted. It passed from tale to tale, whispered through villages, etched into folklore. Songs and poems were written about him. Some survive to this day. One such verse tells us how he met his end. On a circle of stones they placed the pot, on a circle of stones but barely 9. They heated it red and fiery hot, till the burnished brass did glimmer and shine. They rode him up in a sheet of lead for his funeral pall. They plunged him into the cauldron red, and melted him, lead, bones and all. A fitting end for a man wrapped in fire, myth and mystery. Lord William Soulis may be long dead, but his story still breathes in the soil of the borders, in the cold stones of Hermitage Castle, and in every shadow that flickers when night falls. The story of Lord William Soulis might be infamous, but the story of Hermitage Castle, his stronghold, is just as chilling. To this day, no one knows exactly who built it. There is no definitive record of its construction, no founding charter, no royal order. It's as if Hermitage Castle simply appeared, carved from the earth itself, already haunted. And for centuries, it behaved as though it didn't want an owner. Again and again, Hermitage passed from hand to hand, sometimes through inheritance, but more often through scandal, disgrace, or death. Many of its lords died violently, others were murdered. Several lost their titles under mysterious or humiliating circumstances. In nearly every case, the castle reverted to the crown. Some sources claim it was built by Ranulph de Soulis, an ancestor of William, around 1244. Others credit Nicholas de Soulis, the same Nicholas who once laid claim to the Scottish throne, placing construction around 1240. But there's another theory, that Walter Comyn, Earl of Menteith, built the castle earlier in the 1200s. That would mean a Comyn lord somehow constructed a fortress on de Soulis land, which historians find unlikely. The de Soulis family had lived in the region since the reign of King David I, making it far more plausible the castle was always part of their dominion. Even more obscure records suggest something stood on the land before Hermitage was ever conceived. A family settlement called Clintwood, perhaps. Possibly an abbey, reportedly founded in 1152 during the time of Prince Henry of Scotland. If true, Hermitage rose not on an empty plot, but on ground already steeped in blood and belief. One thing is certain: by 1244, Hermitage Castle had become important enough to provoke war. When King Henry III of England invaded Scotland that year, the castle was named among his reasons. That's how significant it had already become. It only grew more entangled in the affairs of kings and traitors. Between 1302 and 1304, William's father, John de Soulis, served as guardian of Scotland, but not for the Scots. He did so on behalf of the English crown. During that time, the Hermitage was transferred to Sir John Wake, an English knight and illegitimate son of Robert the Bruce. When Wake died in 1300, the property fell back to the crown. His widow, Joan, struggled to retain it, but by 1306, ownership had passed to William Soulis. Records say she was compensated, though there's no mention of how she felt watching the castle slip away. The decades that followed brought only more blood. In 1342, one of Scotland's most famous knights, Sir William Douglas, used the Hermitage as a prison. He lured Sir Alexander Ramsay of Dalhousie into its dungeon, where he was trapped still astride his horse. Then he locked the door and left him there. Both man and steed were starved to death. Douglas, known as the Flower of Chivalry, gained his title not for romance, but for the cold efficiency of his blade. That grisly chamber wasn't discovered until the 19th century. When it was finally opened, Ramsay's bones still lay atop the stones, his sword beside him, untouched since the day he died. Later, in the 1500s, Mary, Queen of Scots, became tied to the Hermitage. Popular tales claim she rushed to the castle to see her wounded lover, James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, after he'd been ambushed. The story is romanticized, some say scandalized, into a tale of illicit passion. But Sir Walter Scott, historian and writer, was skeptical. He argued that Mary's journey wasn't for love, but for strategy. Her lieutenant had been attacked by a border raider named Elliot of the Dark, and Mary needed answers. After the reign of King James I, Hermitage Castle began to decay. Its stones loosened, its towers fell silent. The fortress that had once provoked kings and held the worst of men gradually crumbled into ruin. But Sir Walter Scott didn't let it vanish. In the 1800s, he began writing about the Hermitage, urging Scots to preserve what remained, not just the walls, but the stories within them. In 1806, during a cleanup of the dungeon, the Duke of Buccleuch discovered something strange buried in the debris. A massive, ornate metal key, rusted with age. Some believed it was the key, the one Soulis had thrown over his left shoulder into the void as his demonic pact ended in fire and lead. Today, the Hermitage is open to visitors from April 4 to September 30th under the care of Historic Scotland. Tourists walk the ruined halls, peer into its chambers, and trace their fingers along the cold, rough stone. Some say the ghost of Mary, Queen of Scots, still lingers. Others claim you can hear whispers from the dungeon, that the Hermitage never gave up its secrets, and never will. They say Hermitage Castle was never truly built for the living. It squats in the desolate Liddesdale Valley like a wound in the earth. 4 towers thick with stone and silence, guarding secrets no wind dares carry. Even the light seems hesitant there, filtered through centuries of betrayal and blood. The hauntings began not with whispers, but with absence. Horses refused to approach its walls. Dogs, the loyal kind, would tuck tail and yelp into the woods. And the locals, hard folk, border folk, spoke little of the place except to warn. Do not tarry near Hermitage past sundown. That was the rule. A rule born of old debts and darker pacts. Inside, the air is thick, even now. Damp stone presses in like a grave too small for its occupant. They say you can still hear him, Sir Alexander Ramsay, shackled, starved, left to rot in the dungeon beneath the west wall. It was William Douglas, his rival, who cast him down there. Not with blade or blow, but silence. Ramsay scratched the stone with what little strength remained, carving a plea or perhaps a curse. No one remembers what it said, only that the scratching still echoes at night, soft and patient, like a man waiting for justice. Others speak of the Redcap, a gnarled, malicious spirit cloaked in rags and blood-soaked boots, seen stalking the ramparts when the sky turns copper with dusk. He's not just a tale for scaring children. Witnesses swear he is real, short, broad-shouldered, always wet with gore. Some believe he's the lingering echo of William de Soulis, the cruel sorcerer lord whose black arts brought ruin to many. Legend claims the people dragged him to Stane rig and boiled him alive in a cauldron of molten lead. Whether true or not, something returned, something old and hateful. Visitors report cold spots that slither up the spine, breath that isn't theirs on the back of their neck, shadows that stretch against the grain of the light. A woman once claimed to have seen a hooded figure on the upper floor, only to find no stairs leading to where he stood. Soldiers stationed there in the 16th century vanished from locked rooms. No explanation. Just gone. And then there is the crying. Low and mournful, it slips between the stones when the moon is thin and sharp. Some say it's Ramsay, others claim it's the wives of those murdered within its walls. Unseen, unloved, bound to a fortress that never cared for them in life. Hermitage Castle was forged in fear, governed by treachery and sealed by silence. It does not want redemption, it wants remembrance, and it always gets it. Whatever truth lies beneath its crumbling walls, one thing is certain: Hermitage Castle is not just a ruin, it's a graveyard of ambition, a monument to betrayal, blood and legend, and it still watches the borders with empty eyes.
This is just a reminder to subscribe to enjoy our growing collection of paranormal content. Don't forget to like your favorite episode and ring the bell to be notified of new content. As always, thanks for watching.